Welcome to the Dementialand Serial Podcast, a story for everyone who knows someone living in or near Dementialand. My name is Suzka, and this is my story. Now let me see, where was I? You have to remember this is a Dementialand podcast, and that ascribes to certain privileges. Jumping in and out of a time sequence is one of them, so please bear with me. I'll try to stay on the straight and narrow and keep you informed where we are. I got the call about my mother's accident. The next day I caught a flight from California to Chicago. JD, my limo friend, picked me up at the airport and took me to my mother's house. So it's late at night, snowing, the house is empty, my mother's in the hospital, the front door was duct taped shut on account of the break-in, and that's about where we are. Welcome to the Dementialand podcast, the Botticelli Moment. I walked in and roughly closed the patched-up door behind me. The house was empty of real life, but warm. The sounds and lights were still on working hard, as if someone were there. A flickering glow from the television filled the ceiling. I walked up the dark steps and moved towards the kitchen. Muffled conversations from the TV and the radio didn't stop talking at my arrival. They had been warning prospective burglars not to come into the house since Violet left to go to church 2 days ago. It was too early to go to the hospital. It was still the tail-wagging end of yesterday. My phone said 4:40 a.m. The fresh white snow looking through the windows dimly lit the counter and created a suitable amount of light for moving around. A clip-closed bag of pretzels was stuffed in the counter. I love pretzels. In one sweep of my arm, I turned off the radio, snapped up the bag of pretzels, and grabbed a beer out of the fridge. Exhausted, but not quite ready to officially collapse into sleep, I plopped down on the couch, covered myself with a blanket, and turned my head toward the TV. Madlock was on. I slept soundly on the sofa until my body shook me into waking. The jolt rattled all my dreams out of my head. The remote control was stuck in my hand. Madlock left the box hours ago. The room was yellow bright. The night just found a few places to hide. I slid my feet to the floor, sat up, and looked around. It was loudly quiet. A silence that screamed and pulled at my hair. Half of my face felt dented, filled with bed wrinkles. I put my hand on the top of my head for reassurance. The deflated bungee that loosely pulled my hair to the top of my head was now sliding off to one side. I could have easily been compared to the portraits painted by George Baylitz or Francis Bacon, which I found awkwardly interesting. The sun and its overbearing brightness took over the room. Oh, God, where are my sunglasses? The morning waited for the coffee to stop perking before it would explain everything to me. I showered, brushed, and peed, then dressed, layered, and sunglassed myself in record time, a practiced accomplishment. I claw-clipped my hair to an upsweep ponytail and skipped down the stairs toward the basement door to the outside exit. My mother's car sat there under a pile of snow. The church ladies must have driven the car to the house days ago. It was cold, damn cold. I kind of knew where the hospital was located. It was just a few miles away as far as I can remember. To get there, I'd have to trust in the gods and hope they plowed the roads ahead of me. I can't remember driving in snow. Well, not this much snow anyway. A lady at the hospital's information desk told me my mother was in room 404. God, I hate hospitals. I have not reached that age where a stay in the hospital is like a Club Med vacation. They took your mother downstairs for a summer test. The voice came from a bed closest to the door. The occupant was a perky woman who appeared to be an expert in camouflaging her health. She raised her blanket and repositioned its landing over her legs, then ran her hands over the creases to smooth out the surface. A short curtain separated the two beds for cotton privacy.
Downstairs, they took her to the elevator and lowered her to those bloodsuckers on the ground level.
She confidently snickered to herself, amused at her comic sense of humor. Obviously, this was a well-versed woman who had accumulated a number of hospital experiences. She was a bit older, in her early 80s perhaps. Her hair was short, curly, salt and pepper in color, more salt than pepper. Her cheeks were her most prominent feature, round and puffy, stuffed with outspoken nonsense, I'm sure, as well as tiny bits of wisdom that stuck far back around her molars.
My name is Josephine, a gallbladder.
Spoken as if the words were her rank and serial number. Josephina went back to folding her colors and shook her head. She pushed out her lips and slipped in a diagnostic opinion.
She didn't look very happy.
What did you say? Your name is Josephina? Hello, Josephina. Hey, how did you know she was my mother?
Honey, I just know those things.
Well, where did you say they took my mother?
Downstairs. Ask one of the nurses outside to give you directions. But make sure they don't put you into the wrong elevator. You can get lost in this place if you take the wrong elevator. One of those elevators going to take you directly into the morgue. Not any stops, directly to the morgue. They don't tell anybody that, of course. You just end up there in the morgue, and you don't want to go there.
Josephina waved her finger in the air. That added credibility and weight to her words. Thanks, Josephina. Thanks for the information.
She'd be okay, honey. Hey, while you're out there, tell the nurse I need some more meds. The pink ones.
The elevator's sliding doors opened to a long corridor. The light was strikingly different and dim. All the sounds whispered. Directly in front of me was a line of cushioned chairs filled with people dressed in partially open cotton gowns. Some wore bandages and surgical masks. All of them had paper wristbands. At the far end were double doors with head-sized windows for viewing. A hand sanitizing dispenser was respectfully walled next to the doors. I pushed on the dispenser's tail and spread the white foam around my hands and then elbowed the two doors open. The room inside was large and fluorescent bright, with long metal tables in sheeted cubicles that corralled the room. Doctors in scrubs and white coats rushed through the area. Nurses hovered over patients. Some stood by monitors. Others tap-slapped wrists to wake up sleeping veins. In the center of the room, computers, monitors, and files were lined on countertops and manned by commanding nurses. Nurses who ordered all airborne illnesses and contagious diseases to stay in their curtained cubicles. Everything was recorded. I stopped the first blue cotton man that walked past me. I'm looking for my mother, I told him. Violet. She's a sweet little old lady about this high. The orderly looked at me. He didn't have to say a word. Thoughts running in his head exposed themselves like a flasher at a train station. His body told me no one with that description or sweet disposition is in here, but there is a lady named Violet in cubicle 4. The young man said nothing. His face did all the talking. He pointed to one of the cubicles on the other side of the room.
Is anyone out there who can help me? Come, somebody please help. Jackasses, they're all a bunch of jackasses around here.
I dragged my body past the nurse's station and stopped in front of the only cubicle on the other side of the room. The smell of antiseptic and hygiene products irritated my nose. Slowly, I parted the cubicle's curtain and slid my head inside. Oh my God, the woman in front of me was stark naked, sitting on a metal table covered partially with butcher-like paper. She was clutching a black purse under her breast. Oh my God, what in the hell? I scooted my entire body further into the cubicle and made sure the curtain behind me was closed. I could barely talk. Where in the hell are your clothes? Didn't they give you something to wear? They must have given you a hospital gown. My mother sat straight and proper-like, but bare-assed and suctioned to the unpapered part of the table. Her leather purse was sweat stuck to her belly. Her knuckles were white from gripping its straps. The purse was the last thing she was going to let anyone take from her. The purse covered her sacred privates.
Oh, Suzka, thank God and all the crazy saints you're here. These jackasses took my clothes, and I want my clothes, and I want to go home. I want to go home now. Nobody'll listen to me. Find my blue blouse, the one with the pearls, and my black skirt. Oh, and my girdle. Find my girdle. They stole my girdle. I bet they stole my girdle, jackasses.
My mother raised the volume of her voice high enough for the entire ER to hear. Her hands were tempted to raise themselves in protest, but the purse straps and her religious fervor wouldn't let them go. I was dumbfounded. The image of my mother naked stuck in my eyes and had no intentions on moving. I should have been upset, but at who? I waited outside my head for a reaction, but my only thought was how pretty my mother looked. The woman in front of me, inside my mother's skin, looked as if she were the long-lost queen of the seas, an image not like an illustration in a magazine, but more like a Botticelli painting, Birth of Venus. Botticelli's Birth of Venus is one of the most treasured artworks of the Renaissance. It is a painting of this goddess named Venus. Venus emerges from the sea, sitting on a shell. Her shell is pushed to the shore from the wind produced by the wind gods in a shower of roses. As Venus is about to step out of the shell and onto the shore, a nymph runs up to her, reaches her, and covers her with this cloak. In this instance, I think I've got to be the nymph. Thank you for listening. My name is Suzka, and this is the Dementialand podcast.